We got the going live. Hi everyone, it's John again here, and this time we've of course got George Ohan from last time, and also Xavier Ybarra of Signature Xavier, and he's here to basically talk about some of the challenges and opportunities he's facing as an indie entrepreneur filmmaker. So George and I are just basically going to chat with him, talk about what we see as his opportunities, what we see as like kind of some of the ways to kind of face his challenges and stuff. So I guess first thing, Xavier, if you would, just kind of share a little bit with the audience about, you know, what you've been doing, how you got here, and what can we kind of talk to you about today?
Okay, I can start off with talking about how I got here first, and then we'll go with basically in the beginning of it all, it started out with an idea of wanting a desire to go into filmmaking, and in everything that I knew in my past, it was impossible. It was not even a possibility to get into doing what I wanted to do. It was either it was all of the options that I had from where I grew up. And so the desire really kind of just stuck with it, and it caused me to get out of um, this way of thinking of this is what it is, this is what life is, I don't know if much people know, but me and George came out here to Hollywood at the same time. We motivated each other, and we just said, you know what, let's get crazy and let's go for it, because you live inside this one way of thinking your whole entire life, and you've been raised to think that way. And changing that, shattering that, completely shattering it to saying, you know what, I want to do something completely different. I want to do something no one has ever done in the history of my family. I want to do something completely different from anybody that I've ever known. We quit our jobs. We came out here with the desire to become filmmakers, to pursue a career in directing and producing. And, when we first got out here, starting as someone that you think you know what you're talking about, you think you know what you're doing, until you get to a big place like LA. You get to LA, and then you're like, oh, okay, the world's way more huge than you ever thought before. So, it's great because the bigger the fish tank, the bigger the fish can grow. And so the first things that we encountered throughout our career was first figuring out what the world is like, what this new industry is like that we've never known before. And so through that course of it, I know for myself personally, I can say that, I've been here 5 years now, a little over 5 years now, but the first 3 years, right off the bat, was the part of trying to figure out what life was about, trying to figure out what this new life is about, what the industry is really about. You can read things. I've read plenty of books, and you watch people doing things, and everything's great in theory until you're actually there yourself trying to figure it out. And a solution for one person that worked for one person can completely not work or make sense for another person. So I think the growth process of you actually going through the change is very important. You can watch one of the main things, like in a lot of the self-motivational books that you'll read, say to find somebody that you want to be like, find a hero, and study them, study their bio, see what they went through, what they did to get there. And then as you're going through it yourself, you're encountering a bunch of stuff that is not inside the book. It's your own emotions, your own way of perceiving the world, all the way that you grew up, the way that you were taught, all these things that are embedded deep inside of you that you'll never face unless you actually go through it yourself. And so I think that first part of it, that first challenge, really set the role for the rest of it. And for me, the main thing was coming out here to be a film director, right? So of course in the course through that, we became entrepreneurs because there was one decision that we made, was that we're going to do one specific thing. Like for me, it was I'm not going to take a job. I'm never going to work again. I knew when I quit my job 5-something years ago, I told myself, inside my little cubicle that I worked with in 8 years, I told myself that I'll never work another job again. I promised myself, look, I'll never pursue another job again. This is it for me. if you make this decision, then the decision is to make money based on what you know, your craft. That's basically it. And that was a big challenge. So that's why the first 3 years, I feel, really was the trying to figure out life. It's like being thrown in the ocean. You've been training in a pool your whole life. You get thrown in the ocean. You got massive waves hitting you. You got all this depth that you're not used to. You know, you're used to being able to put your foot down and catch yourself because you're getting a little too crazy. But in the ocean, you're drowning, and you got to figure out very quickly how to survive. And that's what I feel like those first 3 years were.
Absolutely, and that's a great analogy actually about going from like maybe like a smaller body of water before to like maybe like a kiddie pool even and stuff into like an ocean. That's definitely a very big jump and stuff. So were there things along the way that you found helpful to kind of help you make that transition?
Let me add one thing before Xavier gets started on that real quick. Finding a hero and investigating them. Myself and Xavier had a lot of opportunity to bounce ideas back and forth, and we are yin yang. I mean, he is the director, he's the artist, he's the creative, and I'm the business producer guy. So that's why we got along. But when it came to certain conversations, it was just like, what? We didn't see eye to eye. But that was one thing that was just like one of those bitch slaps of knowledge to me. Oh yeah, somebody else has already been successful doing this. So we're not brand new. We're not reinventing this thing. It's been done a ton of times with men just like us, with bodies like us, and minds and spirits like us. So it's like, once I started investigating people that have done what we've done, it's like, okay, now being here in the animal called Hollywood, plus seeing the people that have actually made it to where I want to make it. And then I started realizing, oh, I'm not investigating the CEO of NBC Universal. I'm investigating the CEO of Netflix because I like that HD content stuff, and I'm over here, and Xavier's like, what are you doing over there? Well, that's what I liked. So you really start to learn more about yourself when you start to figure out who would you investigate, who would you learn more about, who becomes your hero in that professional sense. And so it taught me a lot. And I don't know if it was a mentorship thing or if it's just like peer-to-peer, just having somebody to really be able to bounce it off. And without a doubt, he's not going to be offended and I'm not going to be offended. Just say what you want, and then we'll just bro it out later, and that's that, and then we're moving on. So, he talked about it real quick right now, but I want to point out how important that was to me and my growth, just some small little degree of adjustment like that, one little suggestion, but I took it seriously and I really went forth with it. So I just wanted to add that.
Definitely. No, you know what, through the hero finding a hero that you're able to find an object that you can say, okay, this is my measuring tape, and I think most people, I think everybody needs a measuring tape, because when you come out here, to you, if you have no measuring tape, you're just going to think that everything that you do is good. It's passionate. your message comes across, because to you it comes across, because you know all the information that's missing from the piece that you created. And being able to measure it up to something, my measurement has always been Ridley Scott. He's one of my favorite directors. And so when I look at his work and I look at my work, that's what I look at, and I say, damn, I'm always way down here, and that's the thing that drives me forward, because I have a massive goal that I have to accomplish. I have to beat somebody or measure up to somebody that has a massive team with him when it's just me, myself. But I think that's great, because at the same time, like I've read Martin Scorsese's bios and books on him, on James Cameron, on Spielberg, and it's all an inspiration to what you're trying to do. You at least know, like George said, that there's a path. It actually has happened before, and because of that, you feel in yourself that, well, if somebody else did it, I can do it too. As long as you believe in yourself that you could become one of those people that is a success story. I think that's one of the major things as well, because depending on a lot of circumstances, you can just be feeling like, you know what, I don't measure up to these other people. You know what I mean? It's not a possibility. And there has to be at one point in your life that it just clicks, that you're just like, you know what, I can be like that person. I am that person. If I put the same effort that they put into, if I was as fearless as they were when they started off. I mean, when Tom Hanks started off, he started off at a studio somewhere where he was, I think he was doing his acting classes. He got into a prestigious school, and he started acting, and then he got offered by a friend of his, person that was in the industry for a while, was like, well, you know what, I can't get you in where you want as acting, but I can get you on set by working, doing small-time gigs. And so that's what he did, and by doing that, an opportunity opened up to where an actor didn't show up, he was there, and he impressed everybody when he was on set. So I think that was a big portion of us moving to Hollywood, was that, you know what, we want to be filmmakers. Well, what are you doing where you're at? You got to go to where things are made. And of course, you know, Hollywood is the place where things are made, but it's also not where all the movies are made. So it's not like saying, coming to Hollywood, all your dreams are going to become fulfilled. What Hollywood did for me was that it allowed me to be around a lot of people that were all trying to pursue their dreams. You meet somebody and everybody has something that they're trying to accomplish. There's not one person. You can meet a waitress. You can meet the craziest person, but they all have dreams here, and they're all actively pursuing something. And when you come from somewhere else where it's like, you know, a job is your reality, that is your only reality. A family is your reality. Getting a house is your biggest accomplishment. Having a family and raising them is your biggest accomplishment. That's a massive accomplishment. It definitely is. But in the sense of chasing a dream, you have to go somewhere where a lot of people are doing the same thing, or else you start feeling like you're the person that's an outcast. You know what I mean? Try to have a conversation with somebody that's, you know, talking about their day-to-day job problems, and you're talking about your problems on trying to create the the storyboards for your next project. You know what I mean? Trying to get a budget to create your next project.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the things I constantly, you know, talk about with entrepreneurs, is the importance of surrounding yourself with people who not only support you but also lift you up. You know, it's the idea of all ships rise with the tide, and really, you know, it seems like you and George both kind of helped each other along the way, just being able to kind of be both the sounding board and the support system and stuff. I think, you know, that's one of the key elements of the folks is you know, like finding people who, like, you can not only trust, you know, like kind of for them to be, you know, have your back and stuff, but also, you know, that like you complement each other. It seems like George was saying, that like, you know, one of you has more of an artistic side, the other one has more of a business side, and those definitely are both needed in, you know, the film industry. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, any successful, you know, company or any organization and stuff like that, they have a lot of different people, you know, like on different levels and stuff for those skills and everything. But I think it's even more important when there's only like one or two of you, and you're trying to, you know, like really make a start of things and stuff. So definitely. Let's take things to, you know, the present day a little bit. What would you say right now are some of the challenges you find facing you, you know, that like now as you've come more established, you've come a long way and stuff like that, but then it's not over yet, right? There's certainly a lot of things that now today you face as challenges.
I think the greatest and most awesome challenge is the fact that, you know, you're constantly trying to beat your last. You're trying to beat your best. You know, and I think that's a great challenge, because, you know, without challenge in life, then you got no sports. You know, you got no you got nothing that everybody loves to watch, boxing and anything else. So the challenges facing inside of it is this, I believe, is constantly trying to grow stronger, grow better inside your creativity, oh, there you are. Yeah, trying to constantly grow in an ever-growing world, right? Trying to perfect something, the trouble with trying to perfect a specific thing, a specific technique, we'll spend a lot of time trying to figure it out, we'll master it, and at that same time we'll also feel like we've accomplished it and we're done, but you're never done. There's always plenty of room for growth. And so, like, there goes that measuring tape again. As long as you have that measuring tape to show you that, yes, you know what, you may have mastered this one thing and that's phenomenal, it's great, it's awesome, and now there's another level to go to. Inside my life, there's always been these stages that I guess I'm lucky to have recognized them, that I know when I get to one level, it's like the beginning of a video game, it's the beginning of a new level. There's so many unknown circumstances, there's so many unknown information, that through the course of going through this level, I grow as a human being, my work grows, and then once I feel that I begin to master it and I'm really good at it, this second level opens up. And all of a sudden, I feel lost again. I feel completely thrown into another world. And there's so much more information because what's happening is consciousness is growing. You were only aware of this problem at the moment that you started. But once you've mastered that, you realize there's a whole other problem. Or not a problem, but there's a whole other atmosphere, a whole other realm, you know, to be able to function in. So I think that's great because as you go through these levels, each one is a challenge to yourself, you know. And I think looking at your own personal challenges is the best thing to do instead of looking at outside challenges of the world and competition and things like that. Because self-growth, if you can grow yourself very quickly, then you can go on the top of a mountain very quickly. If you're racing up a mountain and you're worried about your competition, you're worried about what they're doing on a daily basis, what they're eating and how they're getting up there, then you know half of your mind is preoccupied with information it doesn't need. What it needs is all the information or all the brain power that is necessary to be able to create your own strategy, to be able to have the endurance to go up this mountain on a regular basis. Because you know what? As you're climbing a mountain, I'm sure that anybody that's ever climbed a mountain that's never done it before, it's a very difficult thing when it's your first time. Anything that's your first time always has its challenges. So the more and more that you play something, the better you get at it.
Well, definitely, but I'm not gonna let you off that easy, Xavier. What is like you know, take us to a moment recently that like you've had a setback that like really you kind of really wondered about, like, you know, those kind of things that you mentioned about the growth and the things like what really caused you to kind of, you know, look into your
get the scroll. Xavier, drop the scroll of all the list of them.
I'll tell you right off the bat, I'm my biggest critic, and I know it. And they say that, you know, certain people, they'll say, hey, you're your worst critic. I know it because there's no one else telling me that I'm bad. There's no one else telling me that I need to do anything more than what I'm already doing. So the challenge every single day is convincing myself that I'm good enough, convincing myself to wake up in the morning and say, you know what, today you're going to do something phenomenally great, as opposed to saying, well, I don't even know why I'm waking up anymore, right? I mean, when you get to that point of you're in self-creation right now, the challenge isn't the outside world, the challenge is us. We're the challenge. We're the most difficult. A human being is the most difficult thing to structure. I mean, they say you can't shape other people, you can't change other people, but guess what? On a regular basis, you're trying to change somebody that doesn't want to change, and that's yourself. You think you got it figured out subconsciously. You're like, hey, I like this system. I like the fact that I'm right here, I'm comfortable. But guess what? I got to break out of this comfort zone. If I'm going to get to the next level, then I have to somehow convince myself that I'm going to get to this other level.
Create your own chaos.
I do a lot of different things to be able to motivate myself. I will be the biggest liar in the world if I told you that I'm always motivated. Motivation comes from, I believe, a mixture of hope, of accomplishment, and the desire along mixed with faith. So at all times, those pistons aren't always firing. So a lot of the times, you find yourself blown back, especially I think the time that happens is when you accomplish a goal. You got there, and you didn't plan for the next goal. So now you're like, I don't know what to, you know, you feel lost because you're like, I still have this major goal, but the minor goals, the milestones in between, I forgot to plan all of them. So the biggest challenge of anybody, I would say, including myself, is the self.
So what was like a recent goal that you had that really, you know, you kind of well, let's put it this way, that you fell short. You had a high goal and stuff.
Well, I'll tell you that there's not a part of falling short. It's because, you know, once you know what you want and you know what to do to get it, it's pretty easy to go after it because you have your tasks. You know what you got to do on a daily basis, right? If you plan out your month and you said, okay, by the end of this month, I want to accomplish this. Okay, what are going to be my objectives? What are the things that might stop me? Okay, what do I have to do every single day? If I broke down 30 days down to every single day, what would I have to do? And it's easy because in a week you'd say I have to accomplish this in 4 weeks, and then inside a week you have to figure out what you would do inside 5 days or 7 days, and in 7 days what you would do in 16 hours. 16 hours is a lot of time. So that's why if you have that plan down, it's not a very difficult thing to do. It's when you don't have a goal at the end of the month that you just kind of go lost. And for me, it's like, for me, it happens when it's like I have such a general goal, it's a huge goal that there's no milestones happening. And so, like in the last couple of weeks, I've been going through this situation where I'm like, you know what? What do I want? What do I want now? I know what I want ultimately, but what do I want right now? And then it's like, well, you know what? I want all these things. I want to be able to grow my business. I want to accomplish my website. I want to work on this short film. I want to do this. I want to do that. But it's like, okay, so then let's identify the major goal again. What was the main goal in your life? What's your most definite goal in your entire life that you want to achieve, and how does this align with it? And then from there, you're able to piece apart, okay, well, you know what? Growing my business right now with offering services goes here. My ultimate goal is here, and this other portion of relaxation or something goes here. And then you just kind of figure out the percentages of what is going to make you get there faster. Now, of course, not everybody has the luxury to be able to do it, but when you're able to focus all your mind, all your time, and all the capacity that you have, all your energy into one particular thing, like if you think about having a magnifying glass with the sun, right? I mean, this is an illustration I got from somewhere else, but if you have the sun hitting on a piece of wood, it can hit there for 100 years and it'll never burn it. But if you get a magnifying glass and you put it on there, within seconds you'll have a fire. So trying to get the brain to be able to focus on this one particular point that you want, the main desire in your life, that's the biggest challenge. But when you do it, you get a lot of results.
Yeah, that's one of the things with creative entrepreneurs I find as well, is that even though like we enjoy a variety of different projects, we enjoy working in different areas and stuff, but it still comes down to the need for focus. It comes down to a need to, follow one course until it's success, and that's really, one of the things that I have to admit that, a lot of creative entrepreneurs like myself even, we struggle with, is that we have so many different interests. We have so many different things that we're pulled in different directions. So right now, like if you could focus on one kind of client, what kind of customer stuff, what would that person be like?
Well, the person my ideal customer would be somebody that can benefit the most off of what I offer. Someone that can not only benefit off of, not someone that's just looking for video and photography, but someone that's looking for a creative mind to sort of help them develop what they have. Because businesses, some businesses, I won't say all businesses or most businesses, but there's businesses that don't have a marketing mind. They don't know what it needs. They know that I have a phenomenal product. I know that this is great. What I make, the world needs, but I don't know how to tell the world that they need this. And that part where someone would allow me to come in and they would be able to utilize my mind and my creativity to be able to create something, create that bridge from them and their customers. And I think that would be the ideal customer. Anybody else, there's when I'm in business, the things that I encounter is like, okay, so there's a creativity, there's a thing that I do that I'm really good at, and there's a thing that you're really good that you do at. And if you can count on me, if you could put your trust in me and allow me to do it, then at the end of the project, then I guarantee satisfaction. I guarantee that you'll get what you're wanting out of it with the effect that you're wanting out of it. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, there's some customers that you get involved with that it's really hard for them to trust somebody else because they're so used to control. They're so used to being the one that started their entity. They're the ones that made everything happen. And you know what? And that's okay because I'm sure that we can all appreciate that. But at the same time, when you find yourself in the mud running up a hill and you can't climb anymore, you need somebody else to come with that traction to be able to help you out. And so the people that are at that point where my services would come in, my creativity can come in and help them get to the next level, I think those would be my ideal clients.
So,
Can I add something to that, John?
in fact, I was going to ask you, George, like, what would you say is one area that, for someone like Xavier that they can focus on? Because there are so many different businesses, right? There's so many different people that we can help. So how do you kind of, when you're, helping somebody to kind of identify who their ideal customer or client is, what do you kind of say?
Well, I wanted to add, I've seen Xavier in action and the way he works, and a lot of the times, on previous jobs and things that we've done in Hollywood, I was the guy that met the client, but I didn't actually close the deal or make it come together. He did after speaking to them. I just kind of made the meeting happen, and it's because he has a way of letting the entrepreneur, the business owner, he just said it right now, we're like control freaks. We want every bit of everything in our company, and we're used to having every little, our hands in everything. Well, now it comes a time for marketing and branding and strategy and all these things that they don't have any knowledge of. They're really good at selling flowers or being a mechanic or just doing whatever it is that they do. And here's this guy saying, you have to trust me to tell your story. And it's like, damn, they didn't think of it that seriously. But when an entrepreneur, when a business person really starts to think about their story, it becomes very personal. It's a very emotional thing. And so it's like, here's some dude I met hours ago, and I'm trusting him to start creating this concept of how we're going to tell my last 15 years of who I am, or who we are, or why do we do what we do. We're asking some hard questions. I mean, there's times where we're over there, we're in a business meeting, but not really. It's a couple of friends talking, a couple of people that passionately really understand what you're going through, and the person sitting across from us is in tears telling us their story, and we're like, damn. And we're not taking notes. We're just absorbing it. You're just taking it in, like, dude, the struggle is real. And I don't care if you're making $3 million in your company or you're making $30,000 in your company. It's the same thing. At this small business level, you're going through that same thing. And when somebody comes to you and says, "Let me tell your story," that pushes people back because they've never heard it that way. It's always, let me sell you something, let me give you something, let me do a video. We're not trying to do videos for you. Especially Xavier is not trying to do a video for you. He'll tell you to walk away, and the price is whatever the price is, and you're going to get what you get, and you're going to probably get 10 times what you pay for. And that's the thing is, me coming in as an HD content creator, I'm probably not going for that strong emotional story. I'm going for some quick content, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 5 videos knocked out, a little digital package gone. Xavier's not doing that. He's coming in at a whole nother level and really trying to extract who are you, why do you do what you do, because we don't need to sell what we have to everybody. But there are a few people in this world that will see your message and say, damn, it resonates with them. That's us. That's me. I want that person. I want to support that person. And that's the art of a filmmaker. That's the art of a director, a writer. I was looking behind Xavier right now. I see the book. It says story. And that's not a prop. That's a real book. I've seen that guy reading that book. He's sitting in Hollywood right now, and he reads that book, and he takes notes out of it. And it might be 2 or 3 days where he's sitting there, and I'm just looking confused. I'm like, dude, what the fuck is going on? He's like, oh, no, man, I read this paragraph. And I'm like, what the like, I'm talking literally a couple of days. He's confused, and he's like, he's really battling himself over a paragraph of what a book said. And I'm like, nah, I'm back on my crazy digital whatever I'm on. So that's who you're getting. When you bring that person to the team, when you're working with him, that's the level of commitment you get to story, to your product, to your brand, and that's the difference. When you pay somebody some money, who are you working with? What do you plan on the results being? Here's somebody that can give you those results, but in a way, in a perspective that maybe you would have never thought of, and that's why you're paying, is because I get to rent your creativity for a little while.
And that's really important too, is simply, that storytelling element and stuff, in the sense of like where by putting it out there that's your thing, you attract people. Like recently I published an article on LinkedIn, and basically I had all kinds of folks approaching me,
Dude, you didn't even tag me in that.
But I'll definitely share the link later. But it's the idea, though, that like, and what I wrote about was the idea of that when you're selling a business, even what really sells it is the story. Like and it's not only simply, too often people talk about things like being creative with the numbers, and like they kind of make this negative part about what storytelling is, but really storytelling is getting to the heart of why a person is in business, and that really resonates with entrepreneurs. And so the deals that I've been successful with have always been where you had a seller of a business who told their story, and it was very much from the heart and stuff like that. Like this couple that like basically they wanted to go back into ministry, so that's why they were selling their business. And then here comes this young guy who was gung ho and wanted to take this opportunity and grow the business and stuff. And we brought them together. Their stories matched up. And for me, like when you have that, like when you not only have people who appreciate that craftsmanship of crafting the story, but also, value it and everything like that, then that's where you're going to stand out as an entrepreneur. Like, it's something that like, your storytelling is something that like is going to be unique to you, because even though like there's that thing that there's so many different stories we hear over and over again, in fact Hollywood is built on that, but it doesn't matter because we're always going to be fascinated by stories, and it's about how it's being told, and it's not just about special effects. Like how many movies have we seen bomb because they focus on special effects versus just that amazing storytelling, that craftsmanship and attention to how that art is in itself is handled. And I think that's awesome that that Xavier's focused on that. So okay, given that that's the case, then how do we communicate that ability to storytell? I mean, certainly having a portfolio helps and stuff like that. But then what else can what are ways that like we can share our storytelling?
It's really
that's the $1 million question.
It's really everything is human communication. Everything is human communication. The moment that you sit in front of somebody, we're sizing each other up. Your mind's absorbing subconscious information as well as conscious information that you're trying to figure out about this person that you don't know anything about just yet. But when you start talking to somebody, you're concerned for them, right? It's like, okay, so I can sit here and I can be inside my mind thinking about the end figure the entire time. You're talking to me and you're saying, well, I don't have this much, and this is what I kind of was trying to go humble. I'm like, you know what? You got to go straight for the top. You got to put as much dollar as you got in it, right? It's like, okay, that's not how humans work. So, in the same sense, if you want to be the best at something, if you want to grow at something, if you want people to depend on you, then you have to really be genuinely concerned about what's going on. I can't act like I'm being genuinely concerned because guess what? Everybody has a sensor that's built in that I can see that this guy is not genuine. He's saying all the right things. It sounds great. I love it. However, I don't feel like his heart is there. And that's the part where it comes in where for me it's like, you know what? If I'm going to tell somebody's story, what's helped is that I'm looking at it as a director. I'm not looking at it as a businessman. I'm looking at it as you have a story to tell, and that's what I do. I tell people's story. And I want to tell it as effective, as dramatic as possible, because that's what interests people. And now, I can say dramatic. Oh, you're putting emphasis on things that probably weren't in that chaotic. But let me tell you something, or let me ask you something inside your own life when you're going through personal struggle, when you have something like a relationship breakup. To you, it's devastating, but to the rest of the world and your friends, they're like, get over it. Like, it's that easy for them. But to you, it's like, what do you mean, get over it? This is life-shattering. This changes everything for me. So a person that's able to sit in front of you and say, I get it. Tell me whatever you need to tell me about your story. And in that process, I completely understand it. I feel what you feel when you're going through it, and I want to most accurately tell that story. It goes, now that, I know that's beyond what business, okay, I'm supposed to be thinking about figures, I'm supposed to be thinking about other things, but I can't, because every time I get a new client, that's what happens. I say, okay, well, we're just going to go in and we're going to do our job and we're going to come out of it. But in the process of them telling me about themselves, images first start flooding my mind of being able to visually represent what they're saying. And then I'm like, oh my God, this is powerful. If I use this and I show people how do you say if I can show you symbolically what it means, I can show you the power of what this person actually went through. Now, if I told you just the situation that they went through, you would probably say, okay, well, that's not that bad. I know a couple of people that went through that, right? But again, it's based on your own experiences in life. It's based on the things that you believe. It's based on when you've been raised on. That's how you perceive the world, and that's the effect that you have on it. So if somebody told me that, you know what, me starting this company, I was the first, and my whole family, and everybody looked up to me, and everybody looks at me for this, but my business is starting to fail, and I don't know what to do because I don't want to let them down. Yeah, that's a powerful, powerful story to somebody that means the world to them. To anybody else, someone that's like, oh yeah, I have 100 businesses every day, that's not that big of a deal. Okay, but I can come to you on that level. I can throw everything else away, and I just come on this level and say, you know what? I understand what you're talking about, so let's figure out how to get this message across, that you're passionate about what you do. You love what you do. You know, and then we create a story based on that.
Yeah, one of the expressions I love is the idea of artists using lies to tell the truth. And what that means isn't about deception. It's about the idea that, you know, like just right now, even as we talk, there's these electrons that's being sent across, you know, the wires and stuff, and it's creating these light images and stuff. And that's a lie. That's not really us. That's just some image of us. You know, and artists use either, whether it's, you know, these electrons or sound waves, or, you know, or even like, you know, etchings on, you know, like a Rembrandt or a Van Gogh, right? Using these dots that create an image that when we step back, we have this sense of the truth and the heart of, you know, the message, or the, you know, the truth that's hidden behind the you know, conveying the beauty of a moment and stuff. And I think that's the thing about, you know, effective storytelling is just exactly that, of using these lies to tell the truth, of conveying what is the real heart of the story, for whether it's a business or an individual or even, you know, an actor doing a performance of a moment, right? So absolutely, I think that's...
I would say this is like, I would change the verbiage from a lie to a symbolism again, because we're not actually telling lies. We're trying to show the impact that a person felt at the moment that they were feeling it. So, I mean, how do you recreate the first time you ever fell in love? How do you show that? You know, there's so many different, there's the five senses that come into play there, that it's a powerful impact you'll never forget, because all of your senses were heightened. So we only have visually to show it. So if we have a glowing light, we have a, you know, a beautiful heaven-like scent glow coming on them, and we're doing these things, it's not necessarily a lie. It's really trying to visualize the feelings that you felt. How do you interpret sound on a video? Or, you know, how do you interpret the sense of smell and the things like that? We can only do it through visuals. So by enhancing the visual and enhancing the sound, those are essentially the two things that we have, and showing you things that you yourself can relate to. If we were talking about love, and let's say everybody in the room has fallen in love at least once, then we can say that, okay, these particular images work for me, and if I show you these sequence of images, right, they may now be made up and about something that's completely not real, but remember, we're talking about telling somebody's story. So it is real. We're just trying to make you feel the impact of the emotion that came through that person's story. So I wouldn't say lie.
Yeah, I would say that, you know, the key though is that, you know, whatever you use as your medium and stuff, to use that effectively to tell the truth of a moment, and really, like, what's, to me, the extent of that today is not only, you know, the internet, but social media, like offering these opportunities to do storytelling, like whether it's Snapchat or, you know, YouTube or Instagram and stuff. In each social media, there's a certain audience and a certain way that they respond to your way of telling a story, whether it's through a you know, a short video or through an image and stuff, that you can really very quickly, you know, if you know that audience and how they respond in that medium and stuff, could communicate to them what it is, like that story, that truth that you want to convey and stuff. And the key is like understanding, what with each social media, what is that way and stuff. So how would you say like some of the ways that you found, for your own business that like you've effectively used social media for telling a story?
Well, with social media, it's a little different. I think that when everything that you write when it comes to social media, everything that you post about yourself, um, you have to think about everything as a miniature article. And instead of thinking I'm just going to post, hey, I'm doing this thing today and I'm posting it on my social medias, that's what people perceive of you. But you got to remember also that when somebody Googles you, those those titles that you wrote in are going to show up. So it may show up nothing at all, or it may, if you include your name and you include a title that's written like an article, those type of things will pop up, right? So I think that when you're approaching social media, you have to think about what you really want people to perceive you as, right? Because I mean, in my relaxed state, there's different versions of me. There's me where I wake up and I'm, and whatever I slept in, and they're groggy, and if I opened up my computer and typed something to the world, it would be in a certain manner. If I was at my sharpest focus and that day I just read so many books and I'm focused, I'm in the grind of it, and I start typing out something, it'll be in a completely different context. So what you have to remember is that the world is perceiving you right now based on what you're giving them. Not everybody is so lucky to be able to sit like we are right now and talk to one another. And most people don't have the time to do that, nor the inclination to even want to do that. So everything that you present has to be precisely what they want to see or what you want them to see. So anything that you type out, make sure that it's newsworthy. I would say if you're posting to social media, of course, every platform has a different feel. Facebook has a more personal feel to it. You kind of tell what you're doing, but at the same time, keep it as professional as possible. You're on Twitter, it's more article-based, so you should be linking stuff to your blog, right? So it's more article-based because you don't go to YouTube to find your news, you go to YouTube to find your links to your news, right? It's just a short little phrase that you got there that is going to be able to convince somebody to click on your link. And I find the best way to do that is by having a high-res resolution photo posted on it along with the link going wherever you go. If you post a link on Twitter that has no visual, well, it's not very stimulating. The more and more that time goes by, we're getting more used to videos and photos. I mean, that's why, like Instagram, I mean, is a very great illustration of that, because all it is photos. I don't have time to read what you said. I don't even care what you said. I just want to keep passing through and find the most stimulating photos, right? Or videos. So the same thing with anything else. When you're on Facebook, you can type a message and you can post it, right? But you got to think about all the masses of things that people are going through. It's probably good to communicate with some type of a photo. I would say photo rather than video, because video will have its. I mean, even if you put it up on YouTube and you put a customized thumbnail on it that looks nice, high resolution, because it has a video, maybe people aren't apt to look at it. But a photo right off the bat, they don't have no choice but to look at it. So the fact that that's there and the link underneath it is a little more powerful. So again, everything throughout all the course of it, I would say Instagram's thing is more of a, you can do a more behind the scenes type thing, but also at the same time a profile thing, because everything's about interaction. So interacting the right things, if you're talking about a company, if you're talking about you as a company, as a brand, then it's probably good not to get in too far into politics. It's probably not too good to get into opinionated conversations on there and say things that are your personal opinion, because you're not talking about a personal opinion. You represent your clients. You represent the people that you work with. So you have to be very mindful of that. Even having anything personal in there, if you're trying to pursue a business agenda, even if they find your personal profile where you should be able to say what you want, great, but guess what? Your customers or your clients are judging you based on what they see, based on if they want to be associated with such things or not. So it's very important. If they take themselves seriously, then you should take yourself seriously as well. And so when they look at something, they won't say, well, here's a joker that is going to make he's going to make he's going to make all my content, but if anybody ever clicks on something that leads back to him, this guy is talking about some crazy stuff. I mean, he's a crazy guy. And so that's the part where I think you have to manage everything that is associated with your own brand. You know, figuring that out. Hey, if you want to be open to some things, that's great, because there's plenty of grassroots type companies that do that on a successful basis. It's just whatever your message is, know what it is, and stick to it.
Yeah, I think that's the case.
Let me add one thing, may I?
Yeah, sure. Okay, sure,
John?
please.
Okay, back to, I've tried to jump in 3 times, and I'm like, no, it's too good, I won't.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's like jump rope. The perception thing, you know, number one mistakes as entrepreneurs. You guys were talking art, creative, story. You guys went off on that. I wanted to rein you back in, being the producer that I am. I'm like, come on. You know, we see ourselves how we see ourselves. So I'm like, producer, George Ohan. Director, Xavier Ybarra. You know, director, John Chang. Whoever you think you are, like, that's who you think you are. But anybody else outside of the filmmaker community, they don't know what the fuck that is, okay? They don't know what that means. They don't know why that means something. They don't know what the next step is or something. So the business side, the producer instinct in me says, that's the part of telling the story about ourselves that usually we suck at. Okay, as filmmakers, as content producers, as marketing people, we suck at being like, hey, this is what we do, because we do so much. It's hard to find that target market. It's hard to find that one thing. It's like the barber with the fucked up haircut. That's us. Okay, we can tell everybody else how to do their thing, but when we look at our own company, we're like, that's you know, it's always the same struggle, and it's because we change it, because we have a new idea, and we fall in love with our second idea, and then we love idea number 1 from 8 months ago again, and we try to go back there, but we already messed up the website. So it's like, I get it. So us ourselves, we got to learn on a director, producer, what is that? We have to communicate to our clients, to our customers, our target market, hey, we have a team. I'm the producer, but that means that I bring in Xavier Ybarra as the director. I bring in John Chang as the creative, and that's how we get this thing done. You know, I got a team of 15 dudes in Hollywood on the ready right now, ready to film anything you throw at us. I mean, that's the truth. Or in Puerto Rico, or in New York. We have teams of people, but our clients, they're like, wait a minute, how much does it cost for social media and a video? They don't need to know. I mean, they don't even understand, like, we have the team. They don't understand the producer does this, the director does that, all that. So it gets pretty confusing with our world. With a plumber, you call him, you're like, dude, fucking pipe's broken. Okay, he fixes it. Electrician, hey, that thing's, the box is out and blew a fuse. He goes and fixes it. With a filmmaker, a creative, a content creative, a story writer, a copywriter, well, we're a lot of things to a lot of different people, and I got different contracts with different people, and one guy knows me as the producer, one person knows me as a social media manager, other person knows me as a consultant. That's who we are, and that's this generation. We're a self-taught YouTube generation. We ingest information quickly, we learn fast, we implement it tomorrow if we learned it today, and it's hard to tell our customer that. It's hard to tell that story, that message to our clients. So we got to be really careful on where do we focus, what do we say, who do we say it to, and I probably have 5 different cards and I'm like, this guy gets that one, this chick, she gets this one, and you know, like, whoever gets whichever card is like, that's what I was talking about with that person, and to me that's fine, but online it can be confusing, so always... Right. Because of, you know, to sum it up and everything I said is, that's why it's important for us as creatives to have a call to action, which is what we suck at. We are afraid to say, give me money for this, you know, get paid or starve, artist. So at the end of each message, at the end of whatever, it's like, hey, this is what I do, hire me for this, and these are my services, and this is what I, so it's hard to say that, but you have to start. You got to start at some point. The more you say it, it'll get more and more easy.
And you know, when it comes to social media content, I mean, it's not that difficult to just put it in a line there that says, you know what I mean, hey, if you have any, if you know anybody or you want something in this nature, then give me a call. It's just a matter of, like he's saying, you know, for a person to say, hey, now I'm calling this on myself, as soon as I type this, it becomes real. Well, then you just have to know that you dedicate yourself to what you're doing. You know what I mean? You just, you got to be ready for the responsibilities that come with it, because I can say it's not easy. You know, in all the stuff that comes with it, I mean, you have somebody else that, it's just like in computers. I don't know, but I know George studied in computers, I studied in computers, and if you're a troubleshooter in IT, then you come to somebody that has a computer problem. They don't understand how the problem happened. They just understand that you're the last person that touched it, right? So it's like, okay, so now you're trying to convince them that what you did was beneficial, but they can't perceive what's going on there. And so it's the same thing, like, okay, so if you're going to offer something to somebody and you're going to say, hey, this is what my company does, this is what I can do, then know the responsibility that comes with it. You're going to have to accomplish a specific thing, because if it doesn't accomplish their agenda, then they're going to perceive it as you failed. You know, you may have made me a video, you may have made me this content, but it didn't help me. What am I supposed to do with it? I posted it on Facebook, and it didn't get any more customers. You know what I mean? You're like, well, there's a lot more to marketing and such and such. Well, that's like, okay, well, that's where it's like, if you're diving into that section, if you're saying you're going to provide marketing, then provide marketing. If you're going to provide just the content, you're providing just the content. Know at least the level of responsibility you're coming in on it, you know?
But I think that's also true what, you know, George was saying, though, is that so many times we put on so many hats that it's really confusing to folks, you know, like what exactly, you know, John does, or what exactly does George do, or what exactly does Xavier do and stuff. And I think it's like only with, you know, like kind of the more we share about what it is our thing. Like, for example, for me personally, I've been doing more writing now, and I feel that that's really, you know, where one of my most effective mediums is. Even though I can do editing, even though I can do, in fact, I have done, you know, quite a few different projects, and it's growing now. But still, I find that for me, you know, the writing, the storytelling through writing is one of my personal most effective ways of communicating. Like that's my craft. And then, you know, like it's now something that I've been working on. And then, you know, the speaking part is also something else that like has also been evolving over time. I've done some engagements there. But, you know, like I think that's the thing, though, is that like you may have these different ways of doing your craft and stuff, and then I think it's confusing sometimes for, you know, like to explain, like when somebody asks you, hey, what do you do? You know, how do you like really capture that?
Well, I think it's easier to do this. You choose the title that you want to be known for, and then you say your company does the rest. Like I'm the director of Signature Xavier, right? So I'm the director. So you're like, okay, if I'm going to do anything with Xavier, it's going to be directing. Of course, the difficult thing about that is like, okay, so if I'm coming to you as an individual, it's like you said, we do a facet of things, and so it's like, okay, well, I can tell you that I can equally do a great job at the DPing, the writing, the editing, the coloring, right? A little bit of special effects. But okay, so if I told you all of that, you can still, it's like the mind still only kind of perceives one or two of those. And the rest of them is probably not your forte, right? So what I've always done is I've just chose directing. It's like, okay, writing and directing, or directing and editing. When we show up on the scene and we have we do the job, we have our team in place, you know, you still fulfill the job that you want to do. If it's a job where someone can only afford one person, then guess what? You do all those jobs. If someone can afford a little bit more, if they can afford the whole full team, then guess what? You bring the whole full team. At the same time, like with me, it's just different for me because my passions are lighting. You know, cinematography was one of my first things that I started doing in this. So that and editing. Before I learned directing and writing, it was cinematography and editing, and I loved both of them. And I learned the influence that they have over a creative piece. But then writing and directing has, of course, the beginning stages of it. So it's just a matter of like I said, if you want to be known as a specific thing, I can tell you that I'm the writer, the director, the editor, the DP. I did this, I did that, did that. You're going to say, okay, cool, but the only thing I can identify is with one. So what do you want to be known as? What do you want people to hire you as? I want
Production assistant George Ohan at the fucking rescue, man. What's up?
It really is that. And then you say, so it's like when you're talking for a company, You're more of the representative of a company saying that my company can do these things. So it's easier for people to understand or people to digest that, okay, there's a team of people doing a specific amount of work. You do one specific thing.
Okay, if you have one area today that like you can really use some, like help or to like where if you improve that, that would double, triple, possibly 10x your business. What area would you say that is right now?
Exposure.
Great question.
Exposure.
When you say exposure, like what does that mean?
Being able to deliver your work to the right people. Because you know what? I believe that there's a lot of people looking for me, and people like me, and people like us. They're looking for us, but they don't know we exist. So being able to show a person, to put in front of somebody, and the presentation that it's supposed to be in their language, right? Whatever company it is, if it's a huge company like Guess, Victoria's Secrets, or if it's a smaller company, a mom and pop shop. Everyone has a different language of presentation that they need, and that's the whole thing. Is like we were talking about story, about telling our own story about passion. I tell the story of other people, but he's right. It's very difficult to tell your own story because at one point you start feeling like you're pompous or you're trying to toot your own horn. But it's like how else do you effectively tell the story? Because the thing that I'm really trying to tell you through my presentation, through all the little hype that I put in, is that I am passionate about what I do and I'm passionate about representing you. And anything that I do, I'll put my entire soul into. How do you put that on paper? How do you put that into a video? You can look at my reel, and I don't think you're going to get that from my reel. I think you can look at my resume. You won't get that from my resume. You're only going to get that if you're able to sit across from me. Right? So it is, of course, the first presentation that gets you into that meeting in the first place. So that's really the biggest portion of it.
That's why for me, like I've like I said, started really focusing on writing because I I found that it's been a really effective way for me to kind of go beyond my resume. Like for example, on LinkedIn now I'm doing these articles and stuff, and I'm sharing these stories not only from my life but also from businesses I've worked with and stuff. And I find that you have to just find what is your most effective medium for your audience, your ideal people. Like for me, my ideal audience are entrepreneurs or folks who work with entrepreneurs, and so that's why I've chosen that to be my focus of where I'm kind of focused talking to these folks in ways beyond simply like what a resume is going to do for me. That these stories that I'm telling there are going to convey to folks much more effectively what I'm about, how I can help them, and that's why I've chosen that. So, what would you say, George, that like you would say is like an audience that or a place that for Xavier that he can present his work that would really bring more visibility to what he's doing?
Well, when he said exposure, this would have been a 2-hour conversation with us sitting in the apartment. It would have been like, no, it's this. I personally think it's coming from a sales background and taking pride in quality salesmanship, that it's about having qualified leads and selling more instead of exposure. And the thing is, every organization that's a larger organization understands about that. My history of selling comes from being a United States Army recruiter. So trust me, the top organization with the marketing money and the budget to really sell, I was there. I was a station commander, so I understand that at a whole nother tier than most people. So I'm able to bring that knowledge down here to entrepreneurs and indiepreneurs and really be able to share it. And the thing is, we don't have the qualified leads that we want. If I have a digi package for $675, that's easy. I just got to qualify a guy and make sure, hey, are you interested? And do you qualify? And do you have the money to buy now? Do you have $675 with you? That's it. Well, Xavier's client is probably going to start at maybe $3,500 or $1,500 or whatever, whatever it is. But he needs to qualify that lead. It would be instead of the exposure, the people he's talking to. What he was trying to say, I believe, is I need to talk to more people that already don't care about $3,000 check. It's $3,500. Like, so what, dude? It's like 30. They spend that on a 1 week ad in some little raggedy LA magazine somewhere downtown, whatever. So $3,500 for a video that now exists throughout time. I mean, I don't know how long digital is going to last. I don't know how long YouTube's going to last. But that's one thing that it's hard for us to tell our clients as well. Listen, if you own a restaurant, you got to buy tomatoes every week. And you get to serve them, and then they're gone. You buy this video one time, and you own this thing, and it generates you new income. Those tomatoes that you sold one time don't generate you new income. You know, this is the one thing you're buying as a tool. What other tool do you have? What other thing do you have that's your buddy that's bringing you in money? You know, and so qualified leads and selling. We have to sell. If you're not asking 10 people straight up in their face every day, looking at them saying, would you like a video? Do you want to get one of these packages? Would you like to move forward on getting a consulting gig? If you're not doing it 10 times a day, in 10 days from now, or 30 days from now, or 45 days from now, or 60 days from now, don't expect any customers. Right. You're not doing it. You're not doing it because I'm in the same business as you, and I'm doing it.
I totally agree. I totally agree with them. You're right. It's qualifying. The thing that I said about exposure was basically a broad and general sense of saying that exact same thing of finding leads that are qualified.
I get it. I'm trying to narrow it down for somebody that might be listening and be like, oh, that's, you know.
No, I love the way you put it.
Well, let's work backwards. Okay, so say you know, like we have this company, you know, like just that, like you said, you know, spending $3,000 is like a week's budget. So then multiply that out, maybe, you know, 48, 50 times, right? So their budget is theoretically, you know, like 150,000, right? For you know, like that basically. That's
okay.
their.
I see where you're going. I see where you're going. Okay. So what I would do is I would find the company of if their income is $1 million gross.
You see what I'm saying? Because like typically a company spends like maybe 15-18% of their marketing budget.
Well, you hit it. You hit it. You're exactly right.
So okay. So like if in fact, you know, the figure we're talking about then is 150,000. We're talking maybe, you know, roughly on the low end, maybe 15% of their budget. So their total budget then, their operating budget is about $1 million, right?
1.5, yeah, million, 1.5, whatever.
So then, you know, then that right there, what that tells me is that it doesn't make sense then to have a conversation with this little shop owner who's not going to be anywhere near, you know, that budget.
Yeah.
You know?
That's it. That's it, and that's how you find your qualified leads. You just did the mathematical equation of finding your leads. So a lot of times on LinkedIn, a lot of public information is out there of what companies do what. You find that company, and anybody that's below that 1 million, 1.5 gross threshold, they're just not your guys. They're not. And you could throw those little minnows to me. And I can find a whale that I don't want to handle. I don't want to do that quality of work because I want to do more. I'm a volume guy. I'm like, here you go, John. Here you go, Xavier. You guys team up and create the content. And that's why, like, the marketing community, I think, needs to do a better job of collaboration and forming little teams and knowing each other. Is, look, guys, you can't do it all. I promise you. So it's better just to keep friends and whatever you pass out will come back to you, and that's the way you just explained it. That's how it happens. Is you qualify them just like that.
Now, once you qualify them, though, here's the thing that you got to consider as well: is that if you're qualifying somebody that's making that amount of money, the people that they normally work with are trusted agencies that they normally go through, because people that are dealing with high-end companies are on constant threat for their own jobs if they don't produce. If you're the head of a department and you spend the budget on a stupid advertisement and it doesn't make any money, you're fired. You know, so they tend to go the safe route. So as an individual trying to go towards a company like that, you're not going to be as successful as if you went through an agency, right? An actual agency that they know that would recognize production.
The only thing I can say to that, you're right. You need representation. Like, oh, where's your manager? Where's your agent? You know, coming through an agency. But you know, Apple's whole thing when Steve Jobs was coming out was think different, and they're like, no, it doesn't make sense. It's think differently. And he's like, no, think different is what makes the point. Yeah. I want to think different. You know, and so that's what you're doing. That's what you, as an indiepreneur, as a director, as a creative, you offer. They got some think tank of all these guys that are like ingesting every bit of media out there and like, oh, this is what I came up with. Yeah, right, dude. You've been watching YouTube. You came up with whatever, and here it is. When John comes up with something, when you come up with something, it's original. I can guarantee it, and I can count on it. But that's what these companies might not know unless you now see what they got, you come up with your vision, you come up with what you want, and can you articulate that in a 3-page proposal? And they, no matter what, whether they tell you or not, they get it. If they get an email and they're interested and that thing is hot, I mean, it's better than what the agency's giving them. Bye-bye agency, and they will hire you. So believe in what you have. Believe in your idea. Believe in the proposal, but go about it the right way. Make this thing look. Make them believe you can pull it off when you give them that proposal. Don't be afraid to send in proposals. I send in maybe 5 to 10 proposals a week. You know, I just readjust a few of them, add a nice little cover letter, and send it off. Hey, it's just like a little crapshoot. But as indie, we got to be doing that always. It's that asking, hey, do you want this video? Do you want that? That's for me is those crapshoots, is asking more and more and more. It's just you got to ask people, do you want this work? Do you want it?
Yeah, you definitely have to find that balance between, like, you know, just putting yourself out there and also getting, you know, seeing what the feedback is. You know, until you kind of like get in somebody's back pocket or like that, it's really, you know, like just kind of doing what you can to build that relationship. It's constantly, you know, it does take constantly putting yourself out there. You know, it's like dating, right? Like where you know, if you're not, you know, asking, you know, for on different dates and stuff, then you're not going to get, you have zero chance of success. But if you're at least, you know, like trying to put yourself out there, trying to, you know, find, you know, those qualified leads and stuff, then you
Xavier, don't agree to that. You're married.
Look, no, the only thing I was thinking about in my head when you guys talking about all this is that you have to be willing to fail, but always win. Tell that to yourself. Be willing to fail. Put yourself in a position that you can fail, but make sure that you always win. And the only way that I think that you can do that is if your desire for winning is strong enough.
Well, the thing I try to stress with creative entrepreneurs is the attitude that, like, you know, there's really, to me, 2 main outcomes. The idea of failure is something that's constructed from our school system and everything. But to me, you have success, things going as planned, or you have lessons. I mean, that's really, to me, the two outcomes that you have. You know, like if you go into it with that attitude, then the numbers game becomes a little less harsh and a little less scary or like that, because you're always going to either have what you want, or you're going to learn something from that, you know, result and stuff. And having that, I think, really helps to kind of be where, you know, you're not banging your head against the wall. You're either, you know, achieving something, or you're just kind of walking away with a lesson and stuff. So I think that's kind of another way. So I think we're kind of running over time and stuff. Let's kind of wrap this up a little bit and like kind of like. So, what would you say, you know, like for you, Xavier, then something that, you know, you can take away from today as something that like will help you to grow your business? Like what would you like to, you know, see in terms of for your own business in the next, let's say, you know, 6 months or so?
Well, what I would like to develop, what my main goal is right now through this year, is to figure out a strategy to have a studio that I can begin to put my own movie titles under. Because I know right now we're creating content for other for companies, but my main goal is to enter into the filmmaking process where I'm making movies and owning titles. And of course, inside the world that we live in right now, it's becoming a lot more possible than it was before, where the studios kind of were the giants over everything and told you yes or no. So I would like to be able to see that. I'd like to be able, by the end of the year, to see a platform that is saying, it may not happen at that point, but to be able to have the schematics to say, for the next year coming, I now can see this future happening. So I think that's the biggest part for me.
Yeah, definitely would love to hear about, you know, how that progresses for you and stuff. George, do you have some kind of parting words, like kind of last, you know, kind of thoughts about, like, you know, what maybe, you know, you can even recommend to kind of, you know, help Xavier on that journey?
Well, I would say contact the people that do that. You know, if it's an architect, if it's building a real thing, if it's, you know, what size studio do you think? Do you want a Red Epic in there? What type of equipment do you want? Start pricing everything out, and if it costs $300,000 to get the whole thing, or $30,000. We don't know until we price it all out. And if that's going to be something that you're full force 100% on, do it. If it's just something that you are building along the way with everything else, then fine. You can send out a quick email to a bunch of different places and start getting those numbers, and just have a different folder where you're compiling that stuff. And that's the same suggestion I have to any entrepreneur that's working on another project. Don't just think about it. Like, just create a little folder and start sending out as if you have the $10 million in your bank account right now, and you want to build this thing, but you need answers from people that are going to help you create what's your vision, and figure out, whoa, that is the real number, and here's some real people that could really do this thing. So make it real. That's my suggestion.
Yeah, for me, like, what I find is some kind of tools. I'm big on software tools. I mean, granted, you know, like, I love, you know, pen and paper just like everybody else. You know, different times I love, you know, putting that pen and paper to take down notes and write and stuff like that. But other times it's something like, you know, I use Workflowy when I just want to jot down an idea for, you know, an upcoming blog and stuff. And then other times I use Evernote to collect those ideas. And then there was something visual and stuff. What I do is I'll use Pinterest, and I'll create boards. I create different vision boards where I put, like, you know, I have a vision board of, like, things I want to, you know, get, you know, like, I have the next, you know, MacBook on there, or the, you know, like, the carrying case that I even want to put that MacBook in and stuff. And I'll create this vision board of the different things on that, you know, that board that I pin the different things that I want to achieve. So, you know, I think for us creative entrepreneurs especially, that like George said, the more we can make it something tangible, and we do these little things and stuff, and working towards it, that it's not just some idea floating around in our head and stuff, that we're either, you know, writing or typing, or just something that kind of, you know, makes it more real. I think that's really powerful for, you know, where ultimately beyond, you know, like, people talk about visualization, and you can do all this kind of law of attraction stuff, all that. I think those are great, but I think it's like George says, like, when we take these practical steps that we kind of, you know, make it more real in our, you know, immediate world and stuff, then next thing you know, it's there, real in the, you know, the bigger world and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I would just say on top of that is that, like, especially when you're creating something like a feature film, or you're going into that aspect, that you got to remember that the writing portion of, if you're either hiring a writer or you're doing it yourself, that's a big process in itself, and it takes a lot of time to be able to get it right. So consider that when you're going into that type of subject.
Alrighty, so yeah, I just want to wrap this up, and thank everyone for watching. Xavier, I definitely will share the link for their website. Is there other ways that folks can reach you if they have things that they'd like to learn about your business?
Other ways to contact me, well, through email. They can go info@signatureXavier.com.
Okay.
I have different things on behance.net/SignatureXavier, and all the different social medias that you've already posted, that they can contact me from, and they can see my my different varieties of work. So yeah, if you're interested in anything that I do, then contact me, and I guarantee you that everything that I go after, I put my full heart into it.
Awesome. So we're going to wrap this up real quick then, and again, thanks for everybody who's watching.
Thank you.
And if you guys will stay on for a little bit, we'll just chat for a little before we sign off.